Did Samsung made South Korea or did South Korea made Samsung? Who knows? But one thing's for sure, Samsung is everywhere. Have you ever wondered who built the Burj Khalifa in Dubai? Surprisingly, that was Samsung. And who makes the tanks and fighter jets for the South Korean army? That's Samsung again. Samsung is also one of the biggest chip manufacturers in the world. Now you are probably thinking, Samsung is an electronics company. How did they get into construction and military equipment? Let me tell you, Samsung is not just an electronics company. It operates in over 80 sectors including construction, insurance, hospitality, education, and even healthcare. Samsung is the biggest competitor of Apple. If Samsung's electronic business disappeared overnight, you might think Apple would dominate the entire market. But actually the opposite would happen. Without Samsung, Apple cannot survive a single day because Samsung manufactures all the key components used in Apple devices. In fact, Samsung is so big that it supplies key components to nearly every major smartphone maker, including giants like Apple and Google. The day Samsung stops manufacturing mobile phones and their parts, it wouldn't affect Samsung because it's so huge and diversified into various sectors. You will be surprised to know that Samsung directly contributes 20% of South Korea's GDP. That's nearly 1/5 of the entire country's economy. The influence and level of respect Samsung's president has in South Korea is no less than the president of South Korea. So when did the Samsung group actually started? What sectors does it operate in? How much is the Samsung's turnover and where does it rank globally? How did it grow so massive? What success strategies did Samsung use to get to where it is today? How did the government supported Samsung in becoming the giant it is today? And what controversies surrounded its success? What exactly were the 3 turning points in Samsung's journey that transformed not just the company but all of South Korea and in some way the entire world? I will tell everything in today's video, so let's do a complete analysis of Samsung. If you are a fan or loyal customer of Samsung, then watch the video till the end. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I encourage you to do so. We have done many amazing case studies and have many more to come that will surely surprise you. So to show your support and love, smash that subscribe button now. With that, let's start the video. The story of Samsung begins in 1938. At the age of 28, Lee Byung-chul from a wealthy South Korean family started his first company and named it as Samsung Trading Company. The reason behind the name Samsung was because in Korean the word Samsung means 3 stars. The number 3 means big and powerful, whereas stars represents eternity. Today, Samsung has truly become the same as it was named at that time. You will be surprised to know that when Samsung was established in 1938, it started as a trading company which used to sell fruits, vegetables, noodles, fish and rice. Their initial headquarters were set up in Seoul in South Korea, and over time they expanded their operations to various cities across the country. After some time they started exporting to nearby countries. The business was going well, there wasn't much competition, so within the next 10 to 12 years, Samsung was amongst the top 10 companies in South Korea. Everything was going well until a major turning point came in their life in 1950 when a war broke out between South Korea and North Korea. At that time, the country's situation immediately deteriorated. Earlier, South Korea used to export goods, but after the war, exports stopped and they even had to import essential food items. So after facing issues in their current business due to the war, Lee decided to diversify and do something new. At that time, sugarcane was grown in abundance in South Korea, and even today South Korea is one of the biggest producers of sugarcane. Since there were plenty of sugarcanes, Lee made a surprising decision. He decided to set up a sugar mill. Now you will think the company that makes smartphones today was once selling noodles and then sugar. Quite unbelievable, right? After making a decent profit from the sugar mill, Lee decided to diversify further. In 1954, he made an unexpected decision. He started his first woolen factory and began manufacturing clothing. At this point, Samsung had entered into the textile markets. However, he didn't stop there. Lee kept working across many sectors and in a very short time entered into the service industry by starting his own insurance company. He also opened a chain of Samsung retail stores across the country. Within the next few years, Lee became the richest person in South Korea. Then came the second major turning point of Samsung. They entered the sector for which they are known today, electronics. In 1968, they entered the world of electronics, and within just 1.5 years, Samsung had launched its first product, a 12-inch black and white TV. Soon after, within a few years, Samsung became the world's largest TV manufacturer. In 1979, they started making microwaves. In 1980, they started producing air conditioners, and in 1981, they released the first color TV. By 1983, Samsung was developing personal computers, and by 1993, Samsung had become the world's largest chip manufacturer. And remember the first iPhone that was launched in 2007, the device that had shaken the entire world? Let me tell you, the processor and chip of that iPhone was also made by Samsung. After seeing much success, Samsung started making their own semiconductors and expanded so much that they began exporting globally. Now comes the third turning point of Samsung. So far, I've only discussed the history of Samsung. Now let's focus on its core business, which is smartphones and electronics. The story that you have been waiting for, the key rivalry between Apple and Samsung. Let's discuss that. See, Samsung entered mobile manufacturing in 1983. They made their first phone in 1986 and named it as SC1, but it failed. In 1988, they launched again with the motivation that they wouldn't give up. They launched SH100, but that too failed. Then in 1993, they launched SH700 and it became a hit. In 1994, they launched the SH770, which became a super duper hit. And at this point, Samsung became a big name in the market. By 1998, Samsung had captured 57% of the market share. But remember, these phones were not the smartphones you see today. These phones were CDMA devices where once a SIM was inserted, it couldn't be changed. So they captured significant market share in those phones, but not in smartphones. In 2004, Samsung made an unbelievable decision. It came to India and launched its first phone, but it was a big failure. At that time, Nokia was dominating the Indian markets. However, later Nokia's own fortune took a big hit and soon it was out of the Indian markets. In 2009, Samsung launched the Samsung Galaxy smartphone, and that's when they really started to gain traction in the Indian markets. By 2011, Samsung had become the largest smartphone manufacturer in the world. For the next 12 years until 2022, they remained the market leader globally. However, in 2023, Apple surpassed Samsung, but who knows, Samsung might come back on the top again. During this time, they were not only ruling in smartphone manufacturing and selling, but had also built the largest smartphone manufacturing factory. You might think it's located in South Korea, but no, that's not right. The world's largest smartphone manufacturing factory of Samsung is located in Noida in India. With operations in over 80 different sectors, Samsung has a truly diverse business portfolio. So now let's talk about other businesses of Samsung. But before moving further, if you have ever used a Samsung product, let me know in the comments below. One of the Samsung's core business is Samsung Heavy Industries, which is one of the largest ship manufacturing company in the world. Moreover, Samsung also makes fighter jets, jet engines, as well as army tanks for the South Korean army. There's a company called Samsung Construction and Trading which specializes in building roads, tunnels, bridges and other buildings. Interestingly, this company was also responsible for constructing the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. In addition, they have also constructed the Malaysia's iconic Petronas Towers. The biggest insurance company in South Korea is owned by Samsung. The biggest theme park, Everland in South Korea, is also developed by Samsung. In fact, Samsung has its own city in South Korea called Samsung Town. Let me tell you, Samsung is the 29th biggest company in the world and number 1 in South Korea. Its market cap is 325 billion, which is almost equal to the Tata's group or the Ambani's group. Now you see, the Tata and the Ambani groups build their businesses in India where there is a population of 1.4 billion. Whereas South Korea is a small country with a small population, yet Samsung has become such a competitive global player. This clearly shows their determination. Now that I have told you how big Samsung is and what exactly it does, let's talk about the strategies behind its success. What kind of support did the government provide to Samsung? Were there any controversies along the way? What scams or corruption issues happened in this journey? And what lessons can we learn from all these events? Let's discuss that now. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the first turning point came after the war. The economy was destroyed, production and exports had come to a complete halt, and the country had to rely on aid from the UN and the United States to survive. During this tough time, the president said, if we continue like this, how will we progress? We need to do something to boost our economy. And obviously, the business leaders and these conglomerates are the ones that drive the economic growth. So the government decided to support a few key business groups and announced that they would help them set up industries, expand their operations, and grow so that the country grows alongside them. The government started offering interest-free loans, licenses to work in the industry, tax benefits, and other exemptions to these large conglomerates. The government also banned the companies from other countries from coming into South Korea and only gave preference to the South Korean businesses. After the government support, production in the country increased, exports started flowing out, currency came in, and the economic situation improved. Many people gained employment, production rose, exports increased, and their living standard improved. Although the country benefited because of these initiatives, but the entire country became dependent on one company, which is Samsung. Around 20% of South Korea's GDP is dependent on one single company, Samsung. In other words, Samsung is South Korea or South Korea is Samsung. Samsung is the lifestyle of South Korea. This is the power and influence of Samsung in South Korea. Now, I want your opinion on the government's decision to select a few businesses and support them. Is this right or wrong? I gave you the example in Korea, it happens in China too. And even the American government does this. So do you think the Indian government does the same? And is there any group in India that you think might be secretly receiving government support? Let me know in the comments below. First, tell me, do you think the Indian government supports certain groups? And if so, which ones? And in your opinion, is this right or wrong? Now let's talk about some controversies. It's such a large group, it's hard to believe there are no controversies, right? In 1987, the founder Lee Byung-chul passed away and his son took over the leadership of the company. By 1996, allegations surfaced that he had bribed the president of South Korea for government support. This caused a massive uproar in the media, but after a while nothing significant happened. He faced no consequences. Then in 2008, a former Samsung attorney claimed that Samsung had a 200 million slush fund to bribe judges, prosecutors, and politicians. The allegation prompted investigations, and the chairman of Samsung, Lee Kun-hee, was eventually accused of tax evasion, fraud, and bribery. There were discussions around these cases, and while he was sentenced, the sentence was ultimately forgiven. In 2017, again, the Samsung's vice president was arrested and later convicted of bribery, embezzlement, and perjury in connection with the Park Geun-hye scandal. He was initially sentenced to 5 years but was released in 2018 after the sentence was reduced. So these accusations kept coming and punishments were eventually forgiven, because whether it's the past president of South Korea, the current one, or the future leaders, everyone knows that South Korea can't survive without Samsung. Samsung can easily set up its business in any other country, but South Korea has no other option. Finally, let's talk about the lessons from this case study. Firstly, always diversify your business. Whenever you see an opportunity, take advantage of it and expand. Samsung could have easily continued its trading business of noodles, fruits, and vegetables, but they didn't stop there. They diversified into various sectors like sugar, insurance, clothing, and eventually entered into electronics. This move is what made them the giant they are today. If they had remained focused only on trading, they would have never achieved their current level of success. So remember, always look out for opportunities to diversify. Second, always prioritize quality. While both Samsung and LG received government support, the key difference is that Samsung consistently focused on delivering high quality products. This commitment to excellence is why even a giant like Apple relies on them today. Samsung's reputation for quality has become a significant strength in their competitive advantage. And thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, while talent, hard work, and determination are essential, networking and building the right connections can make a huge difference. Many successful businesses, both globally and in India, have strong entrepreneurs behind them, but they also had the support and opportunities that help them succeed. If you ever get such an opportunity, be sure to seize it. Now, I would love to hear your thoughts. Who do you think has benefited from opportunities like these? Share your opinions in the comment section below. This was the story of Samsung. If you have any comments, leave them down below. See you in the next video. Until then, thank you.